Hey folks, it's Ken Paulson, the Data Monkey, back here again. And in this video, I'm actually going to share something that we built in our last Ask Ken Anything session at Skillwave. I got a question around building forecasting sheets, but tied to the data model. So what I thought I'd share here is how I go about actually building a forecast sheet that ties to the data model that we can actually still slice and dice to play around with. So here's how this one's going to start. I'm going to go and create myself a new worksheet here, and I'm going to go and build myself a little pivot table right here in cell B3. So we can go to Inserts, Pivot Table, against the data model, and I'm just going to put it right here on the existing worksheet. We'll wait for the data model to actually load up here and show me the values that it has. Beautiful. So right here in my sales table, I have a measure called first date. And it's not a very complicated measure at all. As a matter of fact, if we go to Power Pivot and we go to Measures, Manage Measures, what you will see here is that first date right here is just first date of the calendar date. Okay, so calendar table, primary key is date, just giving me the first date from there. Now, let me go and just rename this. I'm going to call this PT date. There we go. And I'm now going to go and build myself another pivot table. I'm just going to go to my Monkey Tools tab now. Same action as we did before, but I prefer to be living on Monkey Tools here. So we're going to go from data model. Okay, again, we're going to put this into a worksheet here. I'm going to go and add some sales dollars on here. And from my calendar table, I'm going to grab the end of month and put it on rows. And what we can see at this point is we now have a bunch of data going down here. We just rename this one, call this PT sales, just to keep these two pivot tables named nicely so I know what's going on. Now, this is a lot of data. This is more data than I want. What I'm actually after at this point in time is I want to be able to select a year from a slicer. I want to have it give me the next 2 years of actual sales if they exist, and then forecast for the year after that. Okay, so let's set this up to start following that plan. So I'm going to add myself a slicer for my calendar year. I'm not adding a timeline in this case because I want to be able to select 1 year at a time. I'm also going to go and grab from my categories table, I'll go and grab a group. So we're going to add a slicer there. That's good. And then from my locations, I will also go and add a slicer there as well. So we now have my divisions, ethical development, tax evader, and the squints. We've got my group here. Looks good. And we've got my years here as well. I'm just going to make some changes to these slicers really quick too. I'm going to go and put this one up to 3. I'll probably leave this one standing with 3 here. I'm going to go 3 columns on this one. Let's go and line these up nicely. So we're going to go to align top. We're also going to distribute them horizontally here so that they're spaced nicely. And then I'm just going to shorten this thing up so it shows up above the data there. So that looks pretty good. One more thing, right click. We're going to go to size and properties, expand the properties over here and choose don't move or size with cells. And that way, if we refresh our pivot tables and column widths change, these things won't start moving all over the place. So there we go. Our slicers are nicely formatted. And what we should see at this point is if I go and select 2009, it's going to drill down to 2009. If I select 2010, it gives me that. 2009 and 2010, great. Alcohol is going to make changes. Ethical development, again, on location makes changes. So standard pivot table stuff, there's nothing super shocking here. The only problem is when I look at this right now and I go click on 2010, we'll notice that my first date is not changing. And I definitely want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my year slicer here. I'm going to go to slicer, report connections, and I'm going to link this one to PT date as well. And now we can see that one's changed to 2010. So I can go and grab both of these. It'll give me 2009 and my 2 years worth of sales. So far, so good. Now, next thing is, of course, I actually want to build the forecast sheet. Now, I'm just going to clear these guys out for the moment here. Now we can click inside our pivot table. We can go to data and we can choose to create our forecast sheet. And this is going to work, but there's a problem with it, as you're going to see when I'm done here. So let me just open up the options. I'm going to change the seasonality on this to 12 because this is a 12-month season. Gives a little bit better look there. I'm also going to go and run my forecast end out to the end of 2011 here. So there we go. So now we got the full year. So that's a good cycle. I'm happy with the way that looks. But the problem is when I go and hit create, it creates the chart. Everything looks good. It's got the nice little table of data, but all of these values are static. And what that means is if I come back over here and say, hey, let's do 2010 and 2011, we'll grab our 2 years here, starting in 2010, we go back to the forecast sheet, still pointing to 2009. So I want to update these so I can drive everything via the slicer as I'm doing this work. So here's how this is going to work. What I am going to do is, first, I'm just going to set this back so I'm in the right place to begin with. I'm going to convert this table here to formulas. And we can do this if we have a data model backed pivot table. So we'll go to Pivot Table Analyze, OLAP Tools, and convert to formulas. Now this will go through and convert everything to formulas, but it has a couple of challenges with it you're going to see here real quick. First thing, as we know, if we click on ethical development or tax evader, you can see that the numbers are actually changing. Okay, so the slicers are still hooked up to it. That's good. There's my alcohol and my food, definitely changing. If I go and select just a single year though, you're going to see that it blanks out for part of it. Okay, so if I go and select 2011, nothing's working because it's trying to pick up these values here. So we need to make this a little bit more dynamic. So let's set these things back for a second and figure out why is it doing that? Well, actually, I'll tell you what, let's just go straight to 2010 for a second. So here's the deal. When I go and take a look at what we have inside this, I'm going to go and start by indenting the formula. I'm just going to open this up and we'll select here and choose Alt-Enter and a couple of spaces and an Alt-Enter and a couple of spaces there. And I'm just going to do this for the rest of the formula so we can see exactly what pieces we're looking at inside here. So you'll notice as I'm doing this right now, what we're actually seeing here is we're seeing that the cube value function is reading from the data model. It's got a couple of external references to different cells here. And then we've got the slicer year and the slicer group in play here as well as the location. So this is now being overridden by the slicer here, which I don't actually want. So I'm not going to take this one right out. I'll just drop that out, say okay, and now we come back with our 23,828. Now I also want to flatten this formula down a little bit because this is pointing to some external cells and there's a challenge inside these things as well. So let's go grab our sales. We've got a cube member here. So we'll Control C. I'll just come back over here. So this is C8, Control V. This drives me crazy. This is a bug in Excel that's been here for way too long. We were going to say paste everything. No matter what you choose, it still just works. But there we go. Just an irritation that gets in the way. So now we brought our cube member over here. So that's good. And now what about B9? Well, B9 has this in it. Okay, so there's another cube member here. Now the problem with this cube member though, is that this one, let's just paste everything again, happens to have the hard-coded date in place. You think, well, how hard can that be, right? We can just feed a text function, get it in the year, month, day format. That shouldn't be a problem, except that this is not actually a valid date. So if I go and look at this and say equals EO month, we go and grab this with 0, it comes back with a value error. So that's a challenge. So let's fix it. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to come over to our cell here, and instead of using the date that's been provided with the cube function, we're going to go to EO month, and we're going to grab the same month or (0) to get the current month end. And that should take us to, as we can obviously see, January 31st. So why don't we go and just format that as a short date so it's a little more obvious as what we're looking at. So there we go. So we've got January 31st, 2010 now. And that's because we're driving from our slicer value here. If I went back to 2009, we would expect that it would be January 31st, 2009. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and replace this with the date. And to do that, we're going to say quote, and we're going to grab the text function, grab our date and feed it in a year -mm-dd format, and another quote in there as well. Okay. So basically we're replacing the hard-coded date with this string here that's going for a quote, and we're feeding the data in via the text function to make sure it comes in the right format, and then putting in another quote so we can get back into the time field that's required here. And when I hit enter, we should get exactly the same value. So that's good. Now, of course, I want to feed that down here and get to the 24,978, but obviously that's not going to work. So let's go and see what happens if we go equals EO month. And we grab this one here and we advance it by 1 month. We're back to the 24,978 and we've got a formatting issue. So let's just fix that. And now what we should see is we should be able to drag this all the way down. No changes there. But if we drag this the rest of the way down, we now should have our 2010 data as well, even though we've only selected 2009. So if I change it to 2010, it's going to update things. If I change to 2011, it's going to grab things. 2012, there we go. We do get to 2013, and we're going to see that we get a bunch of hash NA values though. And that's because there is no 2014 data in this data model. Not a big deal. What we'll do is we'll just grab this. We'll say, let's wrap this in if error. Open up our parenthesis here, put in a comma, alt enter, and we'll put in a 0 in that particular case. So there we go. We've now got some zeros in place there. Awesome. So we now have the formulas that we need in order to derive what we want in the forecast sheet. Now we've actually got to make it happen. So let me hop over here for a second. Let me just go and insert a few rows above this one here. So we'll drop those ones down there. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab my first date pivot table here. So we'll grab the whole thing, Control X. We'll just come over here and paste it right over here. And we can see that it is still working. So that's good. We're going to come back over here. We're going to grab these 3 guys here. I'll Control C and Control V. We'll just bring those in as well so that we've got those nicely in place there too. That looks good. And now I need to start updating my table. And this is going to break some stuff before it actually fixes it. So let me go back and select 2009 for a second. So here's where we're going to start, is we're going to go with equals EO month. We're going to grab our first date, comma 0, and we're going to close that one off. So that looks good. And now for the rest of these, we're going to go and say equals EO month, the cell above, comma 1. And there we go. Everything still looks okay. So that's good. I know in a forecast sheet that these always end up as hard-coded values for this first row. I don't want that. So I'm going to go and say equals, and we're going to grab that. There we are. Nice. Those are now formulas. That's the way it should be. These guys point back to this range of data, but this we still have not fixed. These are all still static values. So let's go and fix those as well. So we'll go back over here and grab our formula. So it's got our big long if error cube value here. Should be pointing at the cell to the left of where we are if everything goes well. Let's see how well that translates. So we'll Control C, come back over here, and I'm going to go with a Control Alt V, and I'm going to paste just the formula inside here. And actually that looks like it worked out nicely this time. Let's go and just check that really quick. Nice. Sometimes I find this can be a little hit or miss sometimes, depending on how you copy paste for some reason, not sure why, but that looks good there. So let's go and copy this. We'll just hit F2, Control Enter, paste all of those values in there nicely. Now the question is, did it work? Let's take a look at 2010. Ooh, look at that. Nice. Let's filter to alcohol. Sweet. Looks like that worked nicely too. Go to tax evader. Ah, beautiful. Love it. Okay. So now my slicers are actually going through and they are slicing and dicing exactly the way that I want to see this happen. So this is great, right? I'm going to 2011. That looks good. Now I am a little concerned about one thing though. I don't know if you can see this, but right down here, this is on the 0 line. So we've actually got a negative number on the axis. These are sales values. They're never going to go negative. So I want to make a couple quick changes to the way the formulas are actually laid out here as well. Just going to go down the bottom here, and right here on the forecast, I don't ever want my forecast to go negative. So I'm going to go max 0, comma, and close the parenthesis. There we go. We're going to do the same thing here. So we're going to go max 0, comma, close the parenthesis here. And finally, on the last one here, we're going to do the same thing, max. Now this is, the upper boundary, so this shouldn't ever actually go negative, but regardless, just in case here, there we are. We've now got this protected. Our negative axis has disappeared, so that looks pretty good. What's also cool here, because this is all formula driven now as well, we can see the confidence interval in here. So if I want to have that as a cell that has an input that I can change, I can also go and say, let's go with the confidence here. Let's make that, well, actually, let's change it, 97.5%. There we go. We'll go something slightly different. And now I can grab this one. And if we go back and say, let's grab this one here, just make that an absolute value and control enter, we can see that those lines shifted just slightly. And if we go back here, actually, let's make it even more drastic. We'll go with a 99% confidence. There we go. We can see it moved again a little bit. Obviously, the more confidence you're looking for, the further the lines will go apart because there's a bigger range it has to be concerned about. But here we go. This one's on a 95% confidence. We'll change this to 99% confidence. And boom, we can see the lines got a little bit further apart there. So now we can actually play with the confidence intervals as well to see what it would actually do to our data. So we can now slice by our locations or all locations. We can slice by all of our groups. We can walk our way backwards and forwards through our data. Of course, the one thing to be aware of on this one is once we hit this point, when we get to 2013, because we don't have 2014 data in there, it is right now going to assume that that flatlines. If I were doing this for real and we're concerned about this, I would probably also add some additional formulas inside of this to say, hey, if this is outside the boundaries of my data, I might be checking something like today's date, for example, or checking in another value, whether or not I actually have, using another formula, whether I have those values in order to be able to go and actually generate this information. But the cool thing is from here, I now have a fully sliceable forecast driven by cube formulas that reacts to the data that's inside the data model instead of using the static values that Excel gives me by default. And I'm so confident in this, as a matter of fact, that I can come back to sheet 2, that was my working sheet here, right click and delete it. We're going to make it go away. And now I can still see that everything is working exactly as it should in order to generate the forecast that I'm actually looking for. So there you go. By the way, if I also clear this out, of course, because it's working on the first date, it's going to go back to January 1st, 2009 in my first date table here. All the other thing I might want to do is, maybe just go and put the slicer on top so you can't actually even see that I'm doing that. There we go. I've got a beautiful little model all set up to build a forecast. So there you go. That's how we can actually build a forecast sheet against the data model.